Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Peter Romanov, and today we're going to be talking about something that's very close to me, and especially with teens today. Today is going to be about teen suicides, the things leading up to teen suicides, and how we can try to prevent it from happening around us. Now, first, let me explain a little bit about myself. I am 16 years old, and I was a child that was born outside of the country in Indonesia. Now, I moved here when I was around 8 years old, and now I live in Washington. In Indonesia, you don't really hear much about teen suicides. So, coming to the US and being in the high school education system in the US has allowed me to experience a lot more personally with people who are suffering from the option of having teen suicide or having problems that can lead to teen suicides. Now, the high schools I went to, there were an abundance of teens who were struggling with the thought of teen suicides, or at least the problems leading to teen suicides. Either they had suffered with family problems, religious outcasting, overstepping, or just being part of the LGBTQ plus community. Now, for the older people listening, you may think that the talk around suicide isn't really that common. However, it's very common for teenagers. And nowadays, even joking around about ending your life over something like a test that was hard is a normal occurrence. Jokes like these are considered relatable things among teens, but in actuality, most will not really consider it. Although teens do joke around topics such as this, some teens joke but are actually suffering about the decision on whether to end it all or to keep going. They joke around but have these feelings because it's one of their coping mechanisms in order to keep the struggle from getting into the outside world. These are just some of the bigger groups of others who do suffer with the thought of suicide. There are others who are all quiet, who are quiet and may seem happy and fine. However, when they're alone, they are grieving over the several problems they have going on in their lives. And for men, such as myself, it's hard to talk about it in front of an audience of friends or family members. You don't want to seem like that person who just keeps complaining about their problems, as it's easier to just get it through it and to deal with it later. It's hard to talk to someone when you are struggling, and especially when you don't want to bother them. This is a relatable experience for most teens, and is one of the problems that does lead to teen suicides. Now, it's not just men who suffer, but also women too. In fact, the CDC said that between 2011 and 2021, the data indicated that 13% of high school girls had attempted suicide and 30% had seriously considered it. This jumped to more than 20% for teens who are in the LGBT community who have attempted suicide, and around half of all the teens in the LGBTQ community considering it. Now that I've talked about how serious it is and how real it is among teens, let's talk about some of the main reasons why anyone even considers suicide. I've talked to friends personally who have seriously considered suicide, and the common theme is the feeling of hopelessness and not being able to see any joy in their lives. There are also other teens who suffered with depression, bipolar disorder, insomnia, and anxiety who have an increased risk of suicide. Most of the common teens who I have talked to that considered suicide was those who have gone through major life changes, whether it be because of family, sexual identity, or something else of the sort. These big changes can affect someone mentally pretty hard, and especially being a teen where your emotions and hormones are already all over the place, having a big change can definitely screw that up. We've talked about how common the topic of suicide is among teens and the reason of why it has affected teens in several ways. So now, let's talk about some of the ways we can prevent others around us from finalizing their decisions. For me, I do bi-weekly checkups on my friends and ask them what's going on with their lives and how they're doing. It gives me a rough idea of what's going on and also to give me any hints and clues to anything that big that happened to them, like their answers being concerning or them being a bit more odd than usual. Signs like those usually means that they are struggling with something, which is where I give them more support. From the research side of helping out teens, you can keep constant communication around your friends or those who are parents to just keep talking with their child. It's important to also allow your friends to confide in you and to be able to let them talk and just dump some of the things going on. Now, for both teens and parents, make sure to not ignore or minimize the problems they are giving you, as that can increase the helplessness that they already have. If necessary, you can also confront someone by asking them nicely if they have considered taking their life. Now, confronting someone has had like some stipulation of giving the idea of suicide in their head. However, it is shown that that won't actually happen. It will actually allow them to confide in you and maybe even tell you why they want to. If they ever do say that they have been having problems deciding, as a parent, you should refer them to a psychiatrist, or psychologist. And in an emergency, call 988, as this is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. As another teen helping out your friends, you can and should refer them to a school counselor and be there for them by doing the things above, such as listening and communicating with them. Now, with all this information, I hope that anyone who is dealing with friends who are considering teen suicide to be able to help them out, and if you are considering teen suicide, to be able to find at least a reason to keep on going, whether it be from talking to friends or confiding in family and friends. And honestly, it's a lot better to talk to someone than to just think that you're gonna bother them, because at the end of the day, you're gonna bother them, but it's worth it for them, especially because you don't want to have them regret not talking to you and you already be gone. Bothering them will not be any trouble at all. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this has helped you in some way.